Now that we covered the basics of height fields, let's start working on our first like dusty, deserty biome. So I'm gonna start by dropping a geonode. I'm going to name it dusty height field and dive in. Drop a height field node so we have something to work with. As you remember, when we're going through the basics, there are different ways that you can start building your height field. But for this, I wanted to start with something which is a bit more art directable. So what I want to do is actually I want to use like the draw curve node to maybe draw where my peaks and mountain ranges would be. So I'm going to drop a draw curve node. And what I'm going to do in this node, first of all, I'm going to set the projection to the ZX plane, so I can keep it in the same plane as the height field is, and then you can kind of maybe template this and enter the and just kind of drop a couple of splines and curves. So. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to use these curves to actually project them back to the height field, just so we can be aligned with the output that you're going to get. I'm going to bring the node and the curves that I have drawn before. You can see here it has this kind of a horseshoe and a couple of lines over here. Nothing fancy. You can try to draw something similar, but I'm going to use them. You can see I even kind of drawn them a little bit away from the height field, so it kind of feels like the mountain, like the ridges are bigger than the actual height field. So in order to project this back, I need to create some geometry from this draw curve. So first, I'm going to resample those curves. I don't need any actual new points. I have enough points already. But what I do need is I need the curve U attribute. And then after that, what I want is I want to remap this curve U. So what you can do, you can use one of the new nodes, which is the attribute remap node. And then I'm going to use and remap the curve U attribute 0 to 1 and just maybe set it to hill. Because I want this value to be lower at the beginning and the end of every specific curve and the highest at the middle. So we have, and you will see right now why that is important. After that, I can drop a polywire node. And what I need for that one is that I can set the wire radius manually, of course, but I want to utilize the curve view that I got from here. So I'm gonna say here that like use the at curve u, but multiply it 100 times. So we get this. As you can see, it's following the remap right here, right? Okay, let's get back to the hill one, because that's the one that we need. Okay, so we have our curves, we have our geometry, and all we have to do now is to project it back to the height field. So I need the height field project node. I plug in the actual height field and the geometry, and that's kind of our initial geometry, that the height field that we're gonna work with. Let's keep the height field by the at default values for now. That is completely fine. So this is our kind of main shape that we're gonna work in. So I'm gonna drop a box here and call this main shape, just so we can be tidy and organized from the beginning. Okay. Moving on, let's work on adding some big shapes first. So I'm going to use the height field distort by noise, plug that in. So I want to add some kind of large variation to this. I'm going to choose the simplex, set the amplitude to around 88, element size a bit bigger. maybe 127, but I want to drop the roughness maybe to 0.345. Yeah, this looks okay. Maybe reduce the octaves as well. I don't want that much of high frequency details. But you can play with these settings by yourself, of course. But I kind of thought this looks very okay for now. After this, let's continue like adding variation. So let's add the Heightfield noise after this one. So for this one, let's use the combined method of maximum. I am going to center the noise, use the amplitude of 253 and element size of 170. So yeah, we're adding a little bit of details to those flat areas over there. Let's also change octaves to maybe around 4.31 and adjust the linearity, or I don't know how actually you spell that. I will learn it, I promise, to maybe something like this, and drop the roughness to maybe to 57. Does we have some details in those flat areas, so they're not that kind of boring. Maybe I can even do some post processing to maybe lift it up. So let's put the BS to 0.586, and these are all the values that I kind of got while working and preparing for this tutorial, and set the gain to 251 to maybe kind of just compress it. Okay, so we have some details. As you can see, this is before, it's completely flat, and by adding a noise on the maximum, this is what we get. We don't have any kind of completely flat areas anymore, which is nice. Okay, so moving on, let's actually add another layer of Heightfield noise. Just because we can, and we want to add a little bit more details. We're gonna keep this one at add. We're gonna maybe just reduce the amplitude a little bit and increase the size a tad as well. Maybe 634 works well. Keep most of the details by default. Sparse convolution node is completely nice. Okay, let's reduce the octaves a little bit so we have that much roughness going on, because we don't need it at this point. Reduce this as well to 1.527, and we can keep the roughness at 0.5. So we're just kind of adding a little bit of variation as well. You can see going from here to here, so it's not that planar anymore. Okay, now I just want to kind of play with the values a little bit. So I'm going to drop the Heightfield remap node as well. Let's start with computing the range, but I just want to maybe like scale it up down a little bit. So I'm going to increase the input max, I don't know, to something like this. So we're just kind of compressing the peaks, as you can see, and then maybe we can like kind of bring the lower part a little bit up. Maybe like 16.235, and just set a little bit more like this. I mean, you can try to find out your own values, but by playing around, I kind of figure out this one to be nice. So I just kind of remap the values to bring them up a little bit, and that is basically it. We'll keep the ramp to linear for now. Okay, so I just want to like remove a little bit of this striation right now. So I'm going to add a Heightfield blur on top of this and just kind of blur it 16.8. So we get a little bit something that looks a bit mushy, but it's fine because remember we're working on some big shapes for now. Okay, right now I would like to a little bit fix this kind of blend between the actual slopes and the planar area. So I want to kind of blur a little bit these areas here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add the mask by feature. So I can select those areas first, but I don't want to mask by slope. Actually, I want to mask by occlusion, and I just want to kind of adjust the occlusion settings right here, 0.687 for the minimum and 0.769 for the maximum, so we get this kind of tight selection. But right now it's selecting the opposite of what I want. So if you remember, you guys go upstairs and click invert mask to get what we need. Now I'm going to add a Heightfield blur to this, but I want to blur the entire one. I want to blur the masked areas, and I'll just increase the blur a bit stronger. So something 47.7 works well. And you can see right now it has blended those areas. Like we've gone from this to this, which is exactly what I wanted. So let me just clear the mask so we can see this a bit better. As you can see, like we had this kind of very sharp transition at first, but after selecting the occluded areas and blurring them, we get this nice, softer kind of transition, which is nice. You also get this ridges point like sticking out, which is a nice addition. So let's say that this is kind of good enough for our big shapes. I'm gonna add a natural box around that as well, call it big shapes. So let's start adding now even more details. So let's start eroding this thing. Before I want to add a little bit more interest to the erosion. So I want to kind of distort the actual Heightfield. So I'm going to use the Heightfield distort by noise one more time. To add a little bit more surface detail, so the erosion has some more meat to work with. I'm going to use again the simplex noise with an amplitude of 293 and bit bigger element size, like 264, and increase the substeps like 222. Yeah, this looks something which I think can work well. So after this, let's drop and Heightfield erode. So I'm gonna drop it off here to the side, plug this in. So what I want to do with this erosion, first of all, I want to disable the visualization. Because it usually just annoys me. I want to see it gray because I can see the features way clearer then. Okay, so let's say we want 10 frames of erosion. That sounds it should be okay for now. So select 10 frames and enable the freeze frame. It should calculate rather fast. You can see we went from here to here. We start getting these nice details in the flat areas and like sharpening of all these peaks that we drew. But what I want to do is that I want just a little bit kind of smooth this entire erosion filter. So I'm gonna come here to the advanced options, to the over here down to the debris flow, and just enable the post smooth. As you can see, it's not a big difference, but it kind of smooths out the debris that has accumulated in the Heightfield. I kind of prefer it that way for now. Okay, so let's do a little bit more distorts and erosions. Let's resample the Heightfield for now. Because right now I want to add a little bit more resolution. So erosion filter has more stuff to work with. I'm going to drop a resample node, but I want to specify the exact resolution and I want to set it by axis. But I don't want to go like this slow. Let's go 2048. that feels like a good number to work with. And I also want to create a mask, so let's mask by feature. Let's mask this one because I don't need to mask the resampled one. I can mask this one. So what I'm doing right now, I'm creating a mask for the Heightfield's distort because I want to add a little bit more surface variation before I go to the next level of erosion. So I want to distort by noise this Heightfield over here, but I'm going to use this mask now. So let's create the mask first. So for the mask, I want to mask actually by not by slope, but this time by height. And what I want to do is I just want to like select the specific parts. So I'm going to compute the range, but I'm going to create my specific ramp over here. So let's go a bit something like this. Actually, this first point I want it to be at position 15, and the second point I want it at position maybe something like I don't know, 3, something like that. So I'm selecting like everything but the very bottom parts of the Heightfield because I want to distort those ones. They can stay the same, but since I want to erode more the peaks and these things, I want to add a little bit more distortion there. So back to the moving on to the distort node. Let's set it up that one as well. I'm gonna like leave it at the curl noise right now. But I want a very low amplitude, like 5. And we can skip the element size. So we just went like from here to here, just like a little bit of distortion. It will mean a lot to get some nice results from the erosion pass. Okay, let's do another erosion. This time, since again I want to disable the visualization, but for this erosion I wanna just keep it at frame 5. I think that should probably be enough. Do keep in mind, since we up-res the Heightfield, that it might take some longer time, even if it has a lower amount of frames. So you can see after 5 you get all these kind of surface details and all this kind of maybe even noise. We can fix a little bit that again, going to the advanced tab, scrolling down to the debris flow and kind of smooth the debris flow. So you can see that looks a bit better for the Heightfield resolution that we are using right now. Sometimes maybe you can even go with the higher amount of frames to erosion, and then you can use, for example, a Heightfield layer node to dial that back. So I can drop a Heightfield layer, connect the one and the new one, and then just select them to blend. And right now I can like blend between the eroded and not eroded, and maybe even like control how much basically erosion I want in. So maybe it's something like 0.8. Looks like it can work nicely. So let's call it, this is our kind of first erosion pass. Let's add in the network box again. Let's call this first erosion, so we can move on. Maybe I should learn also how to spell. Okay, let's add even more details. So what we're actually going to do right now is going to add a little bit more details and more erosion to go for our final look. I want to break up these very boring slopes. So how we're going to do that? We're going to introduce some terracing right now. Okay, by the same way as we did with erosions, like adding it in different passes, in different resolutions to add variation, we're going to do a very similar thing for terracing as well. So let's start off by mask by feature, because we want terracing only on the slopes. So let's start with that. So for that, we are actually going to use mask by slope this time, and we can even use the default settings as they are. We can keep the min-max slope at 20 and 70, and let's see, like this. This looks okay for the first thing that we want to do. Now, let's drop a Heightfield terrace. Plug it in, both into the terrain and the mask itself. Select the node, and you can see by default it will probably look weird. So let's adjust some settings. So we can compute the range for the height to get it all the way up, but I want to adjust it like manually. Let's go 4.241 for the minimum height range, and maybe 121. I don't want to go all the way, so I'm going to reduce the max height a little bit. So we get it maybe something like this. Fades at 0. Step size, let's leave it at 20 for now. But what we can actually do is that maybe we can adjust the fades and the step ramp. So for the fade ramp, let's go linear, but let's invert that and go something like this. So we have more fading at the bottom and not that fading at the top. And then for the step ramp, I'm gonna just temporarily switch to this node so I can work on this one and not like have it calculate all the time. So for the step ramp, let's basically start with maybe like something like smooth ones, but I'm gonna set actually these two Bezier nodes and then just kind of move this one all the way up. So it has this transition, which is not linear, but it kind of starts sharper and kind of slowly fades off in this Bezier level curve for the step. So if I go now back, you won't like see many changes, but trust me, like it might look weird at this point, but the erosion that we're gonna do as a pass on top of this will actually make this look very cool in the end. So, but I'm gonna do one strange thing right now because I want the erosion to fix all this. I'm gonna just downsample this Heightfield for now. I'm gonna put the scale to 0.5 because I want the erosion to be a bit more aggressive on this shape. Okay, so after the resample, I'm gonna drop the erosion node. Again, turn off the visualization. I really don't want to look at you. And I'm going to actually leave it at 20 frames and see how that looks. So enable the options, let it cook. Should be rather fast since we downscaled it a little bit. And you will see, like even though this terracing looks weird right now, they should look kind of interesting after the erosion of 20 frames has finished. Oh, yeah, here we go. So you can see we have this like a little bit of terracing left, but most of the stuff has been probably destroyed by the erosion node, which I like. And again, I just want to smooth those debris after the can, so I get a bit more cleaner Heightfield to work with. Okay, moving on. Let's do another pass of a very similar thing like we did right now. So again, I'm going to mask by feature. This time I'm also going to use by slope. Like I have a little bit different selection right now. I'm going to increase the minimum slope angle because maybe to something 35.9. And I'm going to reduce the maximum slope angle, something like 53.4 worked well for me. So we're just selecting like the very, very steep slopes, and we have this kind of variation in selection, not selecting all the slopes. So, but I also want to kind of blur the mask a little bit, so have some nicer transitions when I add terracing. So I'm going to drop a mask blur node after that. No, sorry, not mask clear, but mask blur. Make sure the method is set to blur, but 10 is too much. Let's leave it at 5. Yeah, this looks like a nice one. And after this, let's do another terracing. So Heightfield terrace, drop that node. Okay, make sure to plug in the mask as well. So for this one, I am going to set the minimums to 15.7 and the maximum I'm going to go a little bit above, so I'm going to go to 180.8. So kind of goes all the way to the top as well. I'm going to fade it a little bit. I'm going to use a way lower step size. I'm going to use the max step size of 5, so have this kind of really small terraces going on in the parts that we have selected. And we're going to this time leave both the fade ramp and the step ramp to the default. I don't think that we need to tweak them right now, because running an erosion after this is going to create all the variation that we need, and terraces are rather small this time around. Okay, but now, even though I don't want to add any variation in these ramps, I want to add a little bit of variation to break these horizontal lines. So as you remember, you can use the Heightfield distort to actually do exactly what we need. Curl noise, small amplitude, 5, just enough to kind of break it up, and the erosion will be very kind of happy with us by doing this. We will get more interesting results definitely. I'm also going to plug in the mask, so I only distort the terracing and not the Heightfield as well. You can see mask on, mask off. Okay, so what is left for us to do is to actually do another erode and get those nice details that we like. Again, disabling the visualization to get the look that we want. But right now, I don't want the whole 20 frames. I think that I will be happy with just 5. 20 looks way too much. But let's see what we get. And so it's good, yeah, because it gets completely destroyed our small terraces. So I'm going to dial it back to 5 frames just so we get a little bit of those terraces back. Okay, yeah, this is something which I like. Okay, this looks like something which is kind of close to what we like. I'm going to put another box on this as well. I'm going to call this our second erosion pass. Okay. Now let's add some final touches. Let's drop another resample to bring back the resolution that we actually wanted. So what I'm going to do for this resample is set the final resolution. So right now it's 1048. I need way more. So I'm going to specify the exact resolution by axis and go 4K. 4096. It will take some time to calculate, but that's okay. Okay, this is the final resolution that we're gonna work with, and right now I want to add a little bit of slumping on top. Maybe actually before that I'm gonna go back to my erosion, and again in the advanced post smooth the debris flow. So you can just give some time to resample nodes to calculate stuff, so we get some nice results. Okay, that's cool. Since this is kind of a dusty biome, like desert, I want to slump some sand on top of this. So let's build our flow field first. Give it time to calculate what it needs to calculate. And then when this is done calculating, which should be anytime soon, as you can see, it will show the flow field as a mask. I'm just gonna set the rain to 0.1. I think that's more than enough, and we can leave the other settings as default. One thing that we need to add after the flow field is the slump node. So Heightfield slump to actually add all the details in. slump mode set to smooth, iterations to 100, spread rate 1. Like the default settings are very good. Let's just clear the mask so we can see what we got. So as you can see, it kind of feels like there's a lot of sand accumulating in all these areas. So this is what we started with, and this is what we actually got. And I think it's kind of shaping up nicely. We had this nice variation here in the flat area, and have these kind of nice ridges which look like something as a cliff you might find in a desert area. So let's prepare this Heightfield for texturing. What I also want to do is I want to actually calculate the flow field once again, because I want the new flow field after the slumping. I'm going to use this flow field in the texturing, so I need it right now. Just because it's a useful thing to have when creating textures. Let's again kind of keep the rain maybe to 0.1, and we can keep the other settings by default. So I'm going to clear the mask after this one is finished. But yeah, this is the mask I like. So as you can see right now, if you inspect, you'll see you have all these volumes like mesa cliffs. Most of these you get from the erosion pass, but there's also a flow one which you get from the flow field. And since I have it as a separate volume, I don't need the mask anymore. So I'm just going to clear the mask. And let's say that this is our final Heightfield. So let's add a network box around this piece as well. We're going to call this slump and final. So right now, if we like this, let's drop a file cache node so we don't have to go through all of this again. The file cache node. So I'm going to just cache a single frame, and I'm going to use this as a base folder, and the base name, this is fine. Let's just name it like Dusty HF as our base name, version 1. All of that looks okay. bgeo, that's okay. We can keep it in geo cached. And let's connect, save to disk, let it cache, and then we can switch it to load. So we should be getting the same. Okay, so this is our file cache. Let's add the network box around that as well, and call this cache. Okay, there's just a couple more things that we need to finalize this thing right now. There's some things that I didn't want to be cached because I might want to tweak them while doing texturing. But so the final step that we need to do before finishing this is actually preparing this for texturing. So what I want to do is create some actual mask that I will need in the texturing phase. I already have the flow, which I know that I will need, but I want to also add like mask by occlusion as a mask. What you might notice is that like Heightfield nodes will probably get slower at this point because the resolution is way bigger than before when we worked with. So for the occlusion, min max 0, 1, I think this kind of works okay. 200, like, yeah, all this looks nice by default. What I want to do is I just want to maybe invert this to get the actual occluded areas like that, which is fine. But since this is right into the mask, I want to use more than one mask in my texturing phase. I'm just going to kind of copy this layer. So I can use Heightfield copy layer after that, and I'm gonna source the mask and copy it to AO, which short for ambient occlusion. And you can see right now we have the mask here, and if I inspect this one, you also see that I have the AO, which is basically a copy of the mask right now. And after this, I can add another mask by I don't know, let's use mask by feature. For the next one, the mask I want to build is actually the curvature mask. So I'm going to disable the mask by slope, enable the mask by curvature, and let it calculate. Maybe just compute range, and that should be enough. You don't see it maybe right now, but trust me, it's there. It's fine. Okay, so, and final thing I want to do is I'm going to drop a Heightfield visualize node just as a helper node, and I'm going to compute the range so I get the minimum and maximum elevation. So these are my my masks. I'm going to create a container on them, call them masks. Okay, so what I'm also going to do is I'm going to drop a Heightfield quick shade. This is going to help us like visualize the textures that we're gonna make. I'm gonna drag it over here to the side. By default, it won't show anything because we're going to plug in the cops after we make it. And I'm also going to drop a cop to network because we're going to need that one when we start working on the textures. And I'm going to add another geometry container for this called texture and previous. And I think we are kind of done. So we have drawn some curves to projecting them back onto the geometry, added levels of noise and distortion, worked on the big shapes first, then had cut 2 passes of erosion, second one with a little bit of terracing, and then in the end we slumped a little bit of debris on top, prepared our masks for the texturing, and prepared our cop to network for the texture itself. And we're kind of done with the Heightfield for the dusty one. See you in the next video.